Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons here at the 2025 GEOINT Symposium in St. Louis, Missouri. In this round, I have the pleasure of talking to Progress Federal. And gentlemen, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves, learn a little bit more about you, your history in the industry, and then we'll dive right into the company. So how about we start with you?
Hi, I'm Billy Sokol. I'm principal for DoD and IC Space and Joint Forces at Progress Federal.
Brent Perry. I'm a director of solutions for Progress Federal. Pretty much doing a lot of field engineering and support of the community for some years now. We can dive right into some background since I'm already yammering away. So, background is basically full stack engineering and coding from the data layer up through user experience, principally for defense and IC contractors and our government customers. So pivoted out of that into working on distributed systems, data streaming, and real-time mission critical applications.
Okay. And how did you get involved in the industry?
My background spans from text analytics, databases, and data analytics. So when we think about geospatial and GEOINT specifically, it really is one of the top three ways of visualizing information that would provide tipping and queuing and intelligence to military and other leaders. Typically, you'll be able to look at something on a map, you want to look at it in a timeline, temporally, or you want to understand the semantic relationships between the entities, the objects, the locations, the events that comprise a particular area of interest.
Excellent. And actually, one little follow-up question for maybe each one of you, but one on your backgrounds. We're often finding that the software development community is big. It's hard to, and getting people straight out of college into software development is not hard. But transferring those skill sets into the geospatial realm, having geospatial skill sets to augment software development into this realm of what we're doing here in the industry can be a bit of a challenge. And so how was that transition to you to learning about this space from your initial roots?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So fundamentally, the software development capability is about envisioning solutions, right? And it's about building things in order to solve problems. And these problems exist in this community, right? It's just that it's not just about writing code directly. It's about creating integrations, creating solutions, and exercising the tools and building the tools that are solving problems that the community is facing.
Yeah.
Right. And so you've got to start from where's the pain, right? So if analysts are struggling with handling the mixture of different kinds of data models or that they're working with, the different kinds of tools that they're working with, the software development community should be moving into the space to finding the solutions to help ease that transition, right? So accelerating or reducing the kind of headache that comes from, hey, I've got all this data that's coming from this source, I need to make some use out of it, but it's not in the right format. It's not adapting to the right schema or the right data model that I need to work with. So now I need to take all this time to either fight that head on or not use the tools that are going to accelerate or provide the products that I'm going to need in the end.
Okay.
Right?
Sweet. Any insight to that, sir?
Well, I've been around maps my entire life. If you're in the back of a station wagon driving from Long Island up to New Hampshire, in order to keep us quiet, they would just throw the AAA triptych or the Shell gas map of where we're going, and I would trace it on the while we're going, and I would see weird things like the names of cities that are the same, or understanding that the boundaries between different towns are a little bit vague, or when you're crossing a river. So I grew up with it, and I see now with people my daughter's age that are 25 years old, it is absolutely second nature. They'll when they go to a concert, they're dropping locations all the time to understand how to coordinate and be able to live in this highly geospatial oriented lifestyle.
Excellent. Well, diving straight into the company, I appreciate the insights. We have a lot of young viewers coming out of college who want to understand what their career progression look like. So thank you for that little segue. But I want to go back on the topic of Progress Federal. Talk about who Progress Federal is and who you used to be as you went through a change recently.
Sure. So Progress Federal is a business unit within Progress Software, 40-year-old software company that has thousands of customers in a variety of data infrastructure and data management products. We're with a unit that was acquired that had focused on the data management needs of industry and government going back to the early 2000s. That company was called MarkLogic. MarkLogic's history with geospatial requirements spans not only the government community, but large oil and gas, manufacturing, healthcare, and other organizations. And what we focus on when we think about geospatial is how do you put everything in context? MarkLogic is what is known as a multi-modal database. We have no expectation that the data you need to be able to bring together and harness for geospatial insights is going to look the same, is going to be shaped the same, comes from the same systems. So we are there to help aggregate the information from multiple systems to be able to express and materialize views that are useful not only for analysts, but the operators and business people that they support, and be able to do this at immense scale, and also be able to extend it out to environments that are really hostile. So you have to be able to scale down to even a laptop in areas that are known as being DDIL, that is denied, delayed, intermittent, and latent communications. There's no expectations that you'll always be cloud connected. Brent?
Yeah, and that ties into what I was saying earlier, right, about trying to solve the problems, right? So if you're kind of tying this back into the question that you asked earlier for those who are trying to get into the industry and take a look at the kind of tools and solutions that are out there, this is firmly in like the NoSQL multi-modal database space, right? But it's integrating with other tools, and in fact, it's one of the key reasons why Billy and I are working there is because we're excited about the capabilities that have been brought together to be more than just a NoSQL kind of capability, and we can talk about that in just a minute. But to the core of your question, like where is this space? What's Progress Federal doing? And to your earlier comment about how to bridge the gap between fresh software engineers or fresh software development specialists and this community, Billy was touching on that integration challenge for dealing with mixed data and different formats and models. And when you come at that problem with something that is multi-modal, you don't have to do all of that transform work up front. And that's really one of the big grabbing points for why we're here and how we support this community, is being able to grab raw data and take advantage of it immediately. So you're not going through a bunch of upfront transformational work before you can exploit the value in the data that you've gotten your hands on.
Okay, well, I think that's a good segue into a couple of our deeper questions here. So the first one I have is, one common complaint among geospatial analysts relate to data management, right? So sifting through structured and unstructured data in different data silos consumes a lot of time and creates delays. So what can help analysts alleviate this problem space?
Right, so that's sort of what I was touching on, right? So if we're able to tackle, this really breaks into two facets, right? So the first one is not having a complex multi-solution approach, so that analysts are having to swivel chair to answer complex questions. Because and we've seen this in the AI demos and the AI tools, right? What's changed is how humans want to interrogate the data. You want to be able to ask something complicated like, hey, I want to know about all the information about Adam related to this entity found in this geospatial intersection of polygons, right? Traditionally, that kind of a question requires an analyst to go hit multiple systems because they were asking a long doc question, like find me something with these words in it, mixed with a graph question, find me something related to this other thing, and a geospatial question of find it in this area, right? And that requires an analyst doing all these separate tasks and doing their own joins and their own blending to get the answer that they're trying to work on.
Right.
So to solve that problem of swivel chairing and the structured and unstructured data management, one part is taking advantage of something that can simplify that environment. That's number one. The second part of it is what I was touching on earlier, which is the data coming in is all these different formats and data models, and if you're having to do a whole bunch of upfront work to transform the data so that you can take advantage of it, it's killing your productivity, it's killing your timelines and your ability to produce data products or produce analysis of value quickly. So moving away from that kind of an approach and being able to take in the data in its original data model and format and still get value out of it and still understand what it is you're working with AI tool integration, with geospatial and mapping tool integration, that's one way to smooth that out and get a quick return.
And where this is heading is right now, as an analyst, more times than not, you have your coffee, you set up your machine, it finally comes on after you've plugged in, and you start with a question, you start with a search, you start with a query. We're doing everything possible so that through interacting with the data and the systems, it knows what your area of responsibility is.
Yeah.
It knows the most common questions that you're going to ask. So the workflow shouldn't start with a query. The workflow should start with, I am completely focused on St. Louis. I actually care most about water quality. I don't want to see anything other than water quality information set either temporally, set up geospatially, or tell me how the water quality is relating to health stats in a particular area, to agriculture in a particular area. And we have to start making that part of the workflow that forever started with a search, starts with actually delivering the data that the analyst and the user needs by understanding what their requirements are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think one last little small follow-up question on this.
Yeah,
sure.
How has AI affected and impacted your relationship with analysts and your customers?
So that's an interesting one. And so I think AI has started to change the way humans in general, of course, analysts, think about how they're going to interrogate their data, right? And it's almost come up as a question of, are databases even relevant anymore? Do I need to be using a database and writing SQL queries if I can talk to an AI and the AI is going to go over a database for me?
Well, I mean, in that regard, databases are just a storage of information that AI queries, right?
Exactly. And so it's happening really at another layer, but you'd be surprised. I've been asked this question before, multiple times actually. But if AI is so great and it's doing all this work, do I need to worry about databases? Do I need to worry about how I'm going to write a query ever again? Do I need SQL ever again? And it's short-sighted in a sense that, of course, AI is critical, and it's throughout our stack for a reason. But the LLM aspect of it is only one aspect of it, because it's, databases, of course, have to store and hold all the information, have vector indexes like we do for integrating with RAG and LLM solutions. But ultimately, the LLM itself is still reaching out through RAG or other means to go get this information to feed a user anyway. And there's also the question of deterministic responses, attribution of the kind of responses you're going to get, and precision in the responses,
right,
and auditing, logging, transactional consistency, and all of that. But AI has been critical and a big part of our focus in how we do content ingestion, how we understand what it is we're ingesting and reading so that we can extract entities and relationships in the content that we're ingesting. And that has been a huge performance boost for how the Progress Data Platform, which is our product inside of Progress Federal, how it does RAG LLM execution.
We're going to pause just a second. Sorry. Hey, Mason, you communicating with Karen? Yeah. Can you go get him?
I can't escort them.
No, you can't, but you can help her out.
Should I just give her my badge and go to the meeting?
No, don't do that. But see if you can look for Kevin and keep her company, and we'll bring her in.
Okay.
So, just want to give her some attention. There we go. Karen just messaged me, so we'll work it out. So, all right, we'll continue that. You just ended your response, correct?
Yeah.
And hold on, just to give it 3 seconds, and then you can respond.
Okay. One of the most admirable things when you're speaking with GEOINT professionals is how rigorous they are in their process. It's not only putting together the intelligence product that's going to help a leader make a really important decision or a set of policies, but they have to not only deal with the volume of the data, but really get to the veracity and hang on that intelligence product, the pedigree and the provenance of the assertions that they're making. One of the things that our capability is able to do to enhance AI and large language models is to be able to get to a great degree of specificity in when you are citing a source on this assertion that you're making, on this intelligence opinion that you have. You can be very, very specific about it. And that is not only a time saver for the analyst that's responsible for putting together that product, but for the person who's consuming it, the operator, the leader, the commander that needs to be able to make a decision can ask, well, why are you saying this is so? And then easily being able to get to that underlying evidence.
Yeah, attribution down to the subdoc, right? So not getting referred to a large, long form kind of source material as your only attribution, but actually having the response come down to it. It was actually this sentence in this paragraph of this document that has led to the AI producing this kind of an output, and that's been a big boon for attribution and clarity and justification of decisions.
Okay. No, that's great. Now, taking it like about a couple steps a little bit higher level here. So the current climate of Doge. So obviously everybody's getting cuts, people losing jobs, programs being downsized. So how does that connect in terms of the rationale to justify expenditure on commercial software licensing?
So we have some history in this, and actually anybody that's been around government for a couple of decades certainly remembers sequestration.
Oh yeah, 2013. Well, this is the whole conference took a break and pushed it off to 2014.
Absolutely.
2013 extra.
Yeah.
So sequestration.
So in a sardonic way, I feel like sequestration and COVID got married and created Doge. So we know these conditions. So one of the things that came out of that is you would see the vendor community talking about total cost of ownership, and actually that was parroting what was happening on the budgetary level from program managers and acquisition people to say, we want to understand the total cost of ownership. These licenses are expensive. And our guidance to customers and partners is you have to be more inclusive with that spreadsheet that you're putting together. Do you have all of the columns? Are you actually counting what the impact is of doing an open source architecture that used 3 or 4 components? Yeah, they were all free, but that exquisite code that you've put together to tie them is an operations and maintenance and sustainment weight that you're going to be pulling forward. And over time, O&M eats proc dollars.
Right. Okay. So going back into your company and in terms of what kind of progress have you had at GEOINT this year?
This has been an amazing conference. First of all, the panels that have been put together have been steadfast in we're only going to win together. And the inclusion of NATO and our allies and the Five Eyes partners.
That's great.
And really focusing in on interoperability and focusing in on how are we going to be able to deploy this fantastic technology, these unbelievable commercial overhead assets, and being able to bring them all together in ways that can meaningfully impact the fight we have now.
Yeah, and I would also add the other thread that I've been impressed with and happy to see here has been the engagement on the subject of AI. It's not been something that's just been in the Spectre or just in the marketing materials. It was dragged right into the center of main stage, right, to talk about here's the tempo of what's actually happening, here's where the community is, and here's where a lot of companies here are targeting. Here's where we can get value out of this immediately.
In fairness, it's had a couple years to mature a little bit into the conversation, right? I mean, it's like what cloud used to be the big buzz term, and probably took 5 years before everybody was comfortable with it.
Right. Yeah. So. And it's probably no surprise, right? AI is all over everything, almost to the point where it's causing nausea. But the focus on it and its specific application and benefit to the user is kind of where I was keying in on. Right?
Okay,
so it's not just the marketing material, but it's the focus on how is this actually going to boost productivity of the analyst? How is it going to boost precision? How is it going to bring new capability that before was only theoretical or took entire teams of people, to get stuff done over a certain amount of time? Now we can do it with more precision attribution faster.
Well, it's about comfort, not in just using it, but comfort in relying on it.
Exactly.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's one of the things that you get to appreciate. So if you go to the Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum by Dulles Airport, there's a dusty little corner, and in that corner is the Kodak rectification machine that was used
right next to the light table that happens to be, I think, from the late 90s, by the way, from the DIA buildings, by the way. But we still use light tables that were in the 9th Intelligence Squadron up until a couple years ago, by the way.
So I mean, so you know how big that is? It's like the size of like a TV console from from the mid 1960s, because it was giant, and that was a person's job, and that is a single button on a phone right now in order to lay that topographic information and the images very well on that information. So you have to be able to. The way that I approach it, and I'm seeing it around here, is you have to be able to abandon what your presumptions were that made sense even 4 days ago. The rate of change is going to be the litmus test to how to remain an agile, useful, and competitive vendor in this market, because the expectations from the users is changing really fast, and the technology is outrunning what everybody's preconceptions have been about the evolution of technology.
Yeah, it's explosive.
Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to wrap up, but if everybody wants to find out more information about Progress Federal, where can they go?
In order to learn more about Progress Federal Solutions, go to www.progress.com/federal. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, giving your insights about yourselves and the company. And hope you enjoy the rest of the conference as we're wrapping up here. And
sounds good.
I'm Adam Simmons of Project Geospatial. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to everybody next time.